You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. First off, I want to apologize because this is coming out a day late. However, I realized it was Memorial Day weekend here in the States, and I've been working like a million billion hours a week since NAMM, so I needed a little break, so apologies for the tardiness, but I wanted to take this weekend and try to relax as much as possible, although I definitely still worked because that's me. And speaking of that, this week's guest is Mr. Chris Wiseman. He is in a band called Currents and another band called Shadow of Intent, and he's a producer, and the list goes on and on. He is also a workaholic. So as you can imagine, we got along famously. In fact, we talk a lot about treating your band or musical project as a business. And I know that's something that has come up on this podcast many, many times, but I think it is very important to remind people of because I think it often gets cast aside in favor of the more fun, artistic things that we do as musicians. And while I definitely understand that, there is a time and place to grab a hold of things and make sure that you're steering the ship the right way. And Chris and I get into that a fair bit as well. It's a really, really good episode. I think you're going to enjoy it. And if you like your metal on the heavy and more progressive side, you should definitely check out his projects and check him out on Instagram and all that good stuff. Those links will, of course, be in the show notes. And speaking of business, well, this isn't really business. It's just me asking a favor. I haven't requested this in a little while, but if you could do this favor for me, it would really help out a lot. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, whatever platform you are using, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or something else, if you could just take a few moments and please just pause this real quick, head over to that application and leave a review for this podcast. If you could leave a star rating, if you're on Spotify, that's all they allow. If you could do that, that would be great. If you could leave a review on Apple, that would also be fantastic. It really helps out a lot. Even if you've left one before, if you could leave a fresh one, update things, that's always good. It just helps people realize that this is an ongoing show, and the reviews being current and fresh are always a good thing for the algorithm, for all this stuff. Even though podcasts don't quite have the same algorithmic push that everything else does, it's still nice to get that up in the charts a little bit and just see a little more activity there beyond just your download, which is also very much appreciated. So if you could do that for me, that would mean a lot. All right, let's just get into this episode. That's enough business for now. Let's do it. Let's get into this episode with Chris Wiseman. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Chris Wiseman of Currents. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Where is here for the listeners? You look like you maybe in a hotel or something?
No, right? You'd think so. Right now, I'm at Mr. Smalls in Pittsburgh. So it's a theater for the last day of a tour I'm on. This is what one of the dressing rooms looks like. It's kind of I don't know, Victorian or whatever you call it.
Yeah, not half bad.
Yeah.
I've seen some gnarlier dressing rooms, so, that one looks pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How's the tour been going?
Really good. Spent like 2.5 weeks with Lorna Shore, and then have been headlining these last 1.5 weeks while they're off doing their Gojira and Mastodon tour.
Oh, not half bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've talked about that band a lot on the last few episodes. Their trajectory has been insane. I mean, they've been working really hard for a long time, but to see their their particular
Yeah,
brand of heavy music get accepted by the masses the way it has been really interesting to see for the kind of the whole scene. Really, I feel like it's one of
yeah,
those rising tide lifts all ships situations.
yeah. It's very special. I'm
Mm.
happy for those guys.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, you guys have had quite a ride yourself. I feel like Currents is like a lot of people's favorite band that needs more attention, in my opinion. Like, you guys absolutely have ripped for a long time. What's how did the band come together, and what's the whole story? There's a lot of speculation out there, but hearing it straight from the
Sure,
horse's
yeah,
mouth is more interesting.
absolutely. So, Currents, was founded in 2011, um, and it was kind of members from another band called We Came with Plague, and they reformed under the name Currents and put out a single, and then they existed for about 3 years, and I was a fan of the music, and their lead guitarist had to leave the band, um, and they had announced an EP that would come out, and they needed someone to write it. So the drummer Jeff pulled me in, um,
Nice.
and since then, everyone that was involved has all left. So I'm kind of the uh, father of the next generation of Currents, and all
Yeah.
the founders are gone. So I'm I don't know if you'd call me a founder of the new Currents or just a replacement or whatever. But yeah, I've been doing the band for almost 10 years now. It's been nine
Mm-hmm.
years, and so kind of over time, the people would leave, and we'd try to get equal or better people to fill the spots. Not to discredit any of the old people, but we're definitely very happy with the people we have in it right now. Um, and yeah, we have Ryan, who's joined pretty much a few weeks after I did. He's the other guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
We have Brian, the singer, who joined in 2015, who's done vocals on all the music since then. We have Matt, who took over for Jeff on drums. So took over for the guy that brought me in 2018. And then most recently, we have Christian on bass, who joined in 2019. So now we have this group of what it is now.
Mm-hmm. And how's it when you kind of have like had to slowly rebuild almost in like a ship of Theseus type of way? How
Yes.
was that how did that come across with the fans of the band? Was that a like a teething process, or were they pretty accepting right away? How did that go?
So I would say accepting right away. And it's funny, there was an artist manager almost um, worked with, but didn't end up. But he said something that I remember on a call I had with him, and he said, "If you're, going to replace a singer, it's better to do it early before you've been around too long and gained too many fans that are gonna
Yeah,
miss them."
very true.
And our old singer did have fans, but I don't think it was like to the scale of where we are at now. So it's definitely good that that happened early. And yeah, we released a song very, within months after getting our new vocalist in, and it was received very well. And I think what he was doing was received better by, pretty much once we put that song out, we already had management interest, label interest, booking interest, and he kind of filled in all the pieces compared to before.
Nice. Very nice. I think that's good advice for any endeavor, really. If there's a change that needs to be made, especially a big one, the sooner you can make that change, the better. It's never going to be easier later.
Yes,
It's never
exactly.
going to be, sometimes it's like he said, it's better when there's a little less attention to go ahead and make that change, whatever it happens to be. I'm a partner in String Joy Guitar Strings, and we have that debate all the time. Whenever there's a change that we want to make, whether it's a packaging style or anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be easier in the future. It's not going to be easier when we have more dealers. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get it done.
Band-Aid. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because some people are going to like things and some people are not going to like things. And there's just nothing you can do about that. Staying the same is usually not the answer for any kind of endeavor, I don't think.
Yeah, it's all about how can I make the future work sustainably, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it
seems like that's been the right decision for you guys, for sure.
Yeah, it is definitely like the ship of Theseus, like you said. I only know what that is because of WandaVision.
That's all you need to know. That's fine.
But it's definitely a very different band from when it started, but it doesn't seem to have been a big problem.
Mm-hmm. And since you've seen all of the iterations basically of the band, has the writing process changed, or has it been basically the same since you joined?
It's been exactly the same. I'll go into Logic Pro, make an instrumental, send it to the vocalist, and he'll put vocals on it. And then there may be tweaks from internal or external parties from there, but that's pretty much how the writing has been since I've joined.
So as for, obviously you've been playing guitar for a very long time and you were playing guitar before you joined the band. What made you pick up the instrument in the first place? What's your journey been like with the instrument?
It was I owe it almost entirely to Guitar Hero 3.
Really?
A game that friends were talking about and that my older brother ultimately ended up showing me. And before then, I was only really familiar with the Beatles and whatever was on the radio, so I didn't really know what I'd heard of Metallica. I may have heard of Slipknot, but like Killswitch Engage, Disturbed, Iron Maiden, I had no idea what that was. So that game really gave me a big interest in those things, that style of music. Guitar Hero 3 really did it for me. It put me onto a lot of stuff. And it was very inspiring for me.
Yeah. What was your first guitar? Do you remember what it was?
Oh, I won't ever sell it. It's a Squier Stratocaster, black and white. And it cost about $150. Mm-hmm. My dad got it for me at Daddy's Junkie Music, an old music chain, back when I was 14 years old. So,
wow.
Right now the input jack doesn't seem to work, so I'm gonna have to repair it at some point. But I'll never sell that guitar.
Yeah, the first one's always special.
Yeah,
especially you think back to trying to fret things and like how uncomfortable and weird it is, and it just becomes second nature after a while. It's such a weird thing to do with your hands, but
yeah,
so many of us fall in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you get heavy into gear at all? Did you go down the pedal rabbit hole or anything like that?
Definitely not as much as many of the other people I know. So my gear journey was pretty much after I got that guitar. I bought a Spider 3, the Line 6 combo amp, 15 watt. And then when that wasn't able to compete with, I started jamming with drummers. I got a Black Star 2x12 combo. I think I still have that. I might be lending it to a friend. I don't remember. And then playing with more bands, seeing everyone have half stacks, and didn't want to be the only band with a combo amp. I got a PV cab with a PV triple X head, and eventually changed
I forgot about those.
Yeah. and that lasted for a little bit, and then I found out about Axe effects and became very interested in the idea of that. So I sold those to get the Axe effects with a Mesa cab. Um, and at some point before that, I did like get a wah pedal. I got a delay pedal, a noise gate, but seeing the Axe effects have all that built in, I stopped using those things. Um, Technically, the wah pedal I could still use, but I haven't really been writing music with wah. So yeah, none of that. But yeah, the Aspects Ultra has served me well for 10 years now. I
Wow.
just bought an Aspects 3 months ago, but literally for 10 years it's been Aspects Ultra.
Yeah, I was talking to actually this most recent episode with JB from August Burns Red, and he was also an Axe Effects guy for a long time. And I don't know if you share the same opinion. I haven't actually played with the 3 yet, but he said the 3 is a big upgrade from the. I think he was on the 2, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your take on it?
So one of the main things that drove me to upgrade was one, so I didn't have to keep changing the aspects between my 2 bands. I could just keep one with each band. But also the ability to connect with a computer. The Ultra doesn't have a USB port, and I'm not sure if there's some compatibility issue with using the MIDI to USB with my operating system. I'm just not able to edit on my computer with that. So being able to edit on my computer is kind of nice. The Xbox 3 I can sync up. But as far as like the tones I'm getting, it might be too soon to say because I definitely really like how my Ultra sounds. But like I think my lead tone maybe is in a better spot on my 3, but I'm still catching up with my clean tones and maybe my rhythm tone on the 3. So yeah, still work to be done probably.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of things to edit, a lot of things to change around. It's pretty incredible what you can do in those Axe Effects units. It's really an impressive piece. Like you can go just as far down the rabbit hole as you would in the physical world, maybe even further in some respects. That's the thing I've had to learn about the digital world of coming from me being Captain Two Man over here is there's things you can do digitally that are literally impossible to do in the physical world.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, those things kind of scare me. Like when you get to the Xfix page with like 30 different parameters and half the definitions I have to look up. So I try to stick to the most basic of knobs. And try to get the amp right, the cab right, any EQ right. And then beyond that, gets a little scary.
I understand. I do. What's your guitar looking like these days? I imagine you're going straight into the Axe Effects, it sounds like, but what is the guitar itself?
Yeah. So I've been with Ibanez for 4 years now, going on my third, renewal with them coming up. So I have a lot of RGDs and RGAs, Ibanez Prestiges, couple S bodies, just, whatever looks good on their site. I'll take a look and ask them about it. And yeah, they've been an amazing company. It's kind of one of the most unreal parts of my music career so far is just like how well they've treated Currents.
Very cool. What does your younger self look at that as what would your younger self think about that if you were to go back and be like, hey, you're going to have a deal with Ibanez, one of the biggest guitar companies in the world? Would you have believed it?
My younger self was so arrogant, so probably I'd be like, oh yeah, of course. But definitely like my slightly older self, after I got over my enormous arrogance, would, even just like 6 or 7 years ago, I'd be like, Oh, no way. That seems like, because I was with ESP before Ibanez, and it was obviously a great company as well, but I didn't get as good of a deal with them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just being involved with both companies is very big milestones for me. I would say.
Very cool. Very cool. So you talked about some of your earlier inspirations, the kill switch and all that, like finding that on Guitar Hero 3. But what inspires you now? What has been kind of your journey as a listener?
Um, so I've been very impressed by, we'll call it the new wave of modern metalcore. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's kind of been led by, I guess, Architects and Bringing the Horizon, and then under them you kind of have bands like Northlane, Silent Planet, Invent Animate, um, Void of Vision's a really cool one. Just ones that go for just a super big, wide stereo width and have like ambient textures on top of that, and it really makes listening sound like a full experience, like a 4D experience, immersive, So
Mm-hmm.
that movement I've always found to be really cool. Just trying to give that kind of life and energy to music.
Yeah, very cool. Have you ever, speaking of immersive, have you ever experienced anything in Atmos? That seems to be the word on all producers' mouths right now is Dolby Atmos. Have you ever experienced that?
So I was with one of my friends. It's been over a year, but he did play some stuff for me in his car. He got some songs on Atmos. Yeah, I haven't spent enough time listening, but the concept sounded really cool. And if if I'm most songs are not mastered for that, they have to be
Correct.
kind of remastered and re-released, and so you don't really have the ability to listen to most music like that. Um, but I have checked out some stuff with him, but I haven't really gone back to it. So it's a good reminder of some homework I need to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I had a interview with a producer out in Nashville. He's also a pretty popular YouTuber named Colt Capperin, and he's pretty plugged in down there. And I guess the word on the street currently is that Apple Music is moving towards not playlisting anything that isn't mastered in Atmos, which is
Really?
which is an interesting conundrum, right? Because most places don't have the ability to do that, and it's not exactly a simple fix to get your studio certified to mix and record in Atmos. It's a pretty big deal, and it's kind of a concern for a lot of independent artists because obviously that's, like you said, that's not the way most music is recorded. That's not the way most people have listened to music, but it seems to
Right.
be the way that they're trying to push that. I don't know if you've heard about any of that, or is that new information? I'm
No,
not sure.
I definitely haven't heard about the playlisting thing. And as far as I know, our upcoming Currents album, I don't think we necessarily got separate Atmos masters made for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is true, then maybe we're not ready for it. But I guess it could always get re-released, remastered.
Yeah, you can always do it again, but yeah, it's concerning because what's been so brilliant about the last several years of independent music is the accessibility. Really, like I was able to release an album myself and people actually found it and listened to it, and
Yes.
that seems, if that's the way things are going to trend, that seems to be a little bit harmful for the independent musician. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird world we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I could see that becoming accessible too, though.
Yeah.
Like any barriers that are created can also get shattered in a matter of time as well by advances and ease of use of all that technology.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. That's very true, especially as fast as things progress these days. The main concern is, like, right now there's headphones mastering solutions for Atmos that are pretty accessible, but they're not that good compared to having the actual all the monitors. I got a sample of that at Sweetwater here last year, and it really blew my mind. It was like, oh man, like hearing this in real life and watching the engineer be able to take, like, on a kind of a graphic, like take and throw something to like the upper left hand corner and you can hear it travel over there. It's just, it was trippy. I don't know if home
vertical
system
panning. That's pretty crazy.
It was a wild thing. I just, when you thought you'd heard it all, right? It's like, wow, this is new.
Absolutely. Yeah. I should look into that more.
Yeah. So do you do a lot of since it sounds like you do a lot of recording by yourself, especially during the writing process, do you do a lot of mixing, mastering, or engineering on the records?
Yeah. So I pretty much have been handling most or all of the engineering. On this last Currents record, I did all the tracking minus the drum tracking. I like to outsource that, so I don't need to build a drum room in my house.
Yes.
But this was the first Currents record where I took on all the vocal engineering instead of just guitars and MIDI only. And then I haven't really mixed much of my own stuff yet. I do have a project with Ryan from Fit for a King where I did mix all the songs that we released, and I do run a business where I do songwriting, producing, mixing for other bands.
Oh, cool.
But I haven't yet been brave enough to mix a Currents record just yet.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Maris Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
I would like to one day, but right now I might not be in the right headspace.
I totally understand. When you outsource the drums, do you have the drummer actually go to a studio and record those acoustically, or is he playing a MIDI kit, or how do you guys usually do it?
There have been MIDI drums in the past, but that would just be typed in by me. This is all a studio where it's all acoustic.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a completely different situation. I've done a little bit of drum recording in the past, and it's so dependent on the room that if your space
Yes.
isn't right, it's very difficult to get a good recorded acoustic drum sound. I mean, good subjective, right? Sometimes bad is good depending on the context, but for what you typically think of in rock and metal, it's very room dependent, and I don't know if a
Yeah.
lot of people are aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's, I'd definitely rather have a programmed drum than a badly recorded drum.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that's a controversial opinion, but when the goal is that big um, cinematic texture I was talking about, I definitely don't want to have any low fidelity sounds anywhere unless it's what the song calls for. But for something as important as drums, the foundation of everything, I think it's important for those to be as pristine as we can get them.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have, when you're working on these records, do you have, some people have reference tracks they go to that are other bands or other artists recordings that they will go and directly listen to while doing some of the engineering parts? Do you have anything you refer to that's like, oh man, I love the guitars on this, or I love the drum sound on this, how can I get something close to that? Do you go through that process at all?
Yeah, definitely had reference mixes. So the guy that makes the Last Currents record has mixed Chelsea Grin quite a bit, and he has
Nice.
a song he did with them called Hostage, and that song he just achieved a very impressive stereo width and level of aggression on all the transients and everything. So I really like just how everything is sitting on that record, that song specifically.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you had any pinch me moments? Where you're like, I can't believe I'm playing at this theater I used to go to as an audience member, or I can't believe I'm talking to this person, or insert moment here.
Yeah,
Do you have anything that really stands out?
yeah. Every year it kind of, a couple small ones happen. Uh, I'm not a big Jackass fan, but I am familiar with it. And I played this festival called Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and Steve-O, who's one of the Jackass guys, was standing next to me the whole set, and
Nice.
talked to him a little after. I thought that was kind of cool because I remember looking at him and it's like, this guy looks familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. And then after the set, everyone at Currents was like, yo, did you see Steve-O? And I'm like, oh, that's who that was. Yeah. um, yeah, that was a pretty cool one. Even just every time Currents plays the home venue, the shows, get bigger, and we got to do a really cool Christmas show. That was almost at 1,000 people.
Nice.
Which for us was pretty cool. This upcoming tour we'll be doing. This upcoming tour, honestly, will be kind of a pinch me moment too, because now, potentially doing 1,000 people in cities we don't even live in. Oh, that's pretty crazy to me. So yeah, just whenever we get to do big shows like that, it's cool. And then obviously supporting much bigger bands like the Ghost Inside, doing like 10,000 people in Worcester was a really special show because that was the first show after the pandemic.
Wow.
That we got to do. But yeah, it's really cool celebrity meets. One of my favorites was actually before I even had a band. John Petrucci did like a guitar workshop clinic type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to meet him, and I'll never forget how friendly and down to earth he was. Because I always tell people, if I was as good as John Petrucci, there's no way I'd be that nice. Because it'd be like, can imagine becoming so arrogant when you're that good. But yeah, he's just like a nice, gentle man, that very humble guy. So I, that's always resonated with me, that no matter what you do with your career, you can always choose to be nice to people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm still, waiting to meet Metallica one day. That's kind of always been a goal that I haven't done yet. But
Me too.
yeah, at some point. Which is funny because my fiance's mom just met them. Like she's met them many times. She's like family that has worked with them in the past, so she gets to hang out with them sometimes. And
That's
I
cool.
haven't been along for one of those trips yet. But one day.
One day. So, going back a little bit, I just thought of this while you were talking. You've been a part of a band that's had more lineup changes than most people, and so you can probably speak to this from both sides. If you are somebody that's trying to come to an established band, what are some, obviously you have to know how to play, you have to know the material, but beyond that, what are some things that you look for when auditioning new members?
Yeah, totally. This is one probably everyone will tell you. There's like a personality factor of getting along with the person that has to be there. Whether that be common interests or just being like a very kind, down to earth person is super important. Not being overly entitled or selfish, team player, that kind of stuff. One controversial opinion is, to some degree, they kind of have to look the part. If they just, are very, more or less look way different than the rest of the band, and not in a way that you feel like serves the band. Sometimes it works, and that can be a deterrent. But yeah, other than that, songwriting is a plus. Being able to contribute vocals to it is a plus. If you're not the vocalist, doing backup vocals, really, or just any skills that can be helpful on tour, whether it be versed in technology, audio, or video, graphic design, mechanical stuff. Those are all pluses, but yeah, definitely being able to play the stuff and being easy to get along with, I think most people would agree, are the top two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the people I see get to join established bands and stay with them, is those two boxes are always checked.
Mm-hmm. I think that goes across career fields too. Like, I think being good at your job is a given. That just almost goes without saying. You should be good at your job, at least decent. But being cool and just being somebody that people can at least tolerate being around, at the very least, if not fully enjoy being around, is it's important. That doesn't mean you have to be fake, and doesn't mean you have to like put on a smile at all times, but you certainly can't be a jerk. And I think that will, I think being generally nice to people, I know for a fact that it kept me from being laid off at a couple of my old jobs back in 2008. So it's underrated, I think, just being easy to get along with.
Social skills are definitely a skill that, like many skills, can be learned. Some people are more, it comes more naturally to some people, but there are definitely principles such as the golden rule that can help you find your way, and just making sure, you're considerate of others and you wouldn't do something to someone that you wouldn't like if it was done to you. And even just finding things that, even if you don't mind if they're done to you, that most people wouldn't like it done to them. Um, just for example, some people have different standards of cleanliness, and trying to find some common ground where if someone is, cleaner than you, you try to keep up with them, even if you don't mind being messy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Or, don't stink up the van at least as little as possible. It's probably a good one.
Yes. Yeah. People like, most people like it smelling good, even if you don't mind.
Yeah. So going back to one of the other things you said might be semi-controversial, the aesthetics, having to look the part. I think a lot of people across the board want to say that aesthetics don't matter, whether you're talking about how somebody presents themselves in a band context or like designing how a guitar pedal looks. And I couldn't disagree with that more. I have actually, I'm really connected in the guitar pedal world, and I know people who have taken the exact same circuit, redesigned the graphics, put a different name on it, and it sold better than it did in the other version, and the sonic differences there were none. It was literally the exact same circuit. And so I think people buy with their eyes more than people want to admit. And I think that also applies to bands. I mean, that's how we used to shop for records, right? Like, this looks like something I might be interested in, and I think looking the part, I don't think that should be too controversial. I don't think that's not a mean thing. It's just what it is.
Yeah. Some people might not like to admit it or be straightforward about it, but it is many bands are businesses and brands, and if you don't want to treat it that way, that's fine. Just don't expect the results of doing so. So if you truly don't care about the aspects of your business and you don't want to treat it as a business, that's true for many bands. But if you're trying to have growth and continue to expand what you're doing, then it's kind of important to keep these things in mind.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important thing to say. Bands are a business. If you're going to try to do this for your living, if you're going to try to pay your bills and feed your family off of music, then you need to treat it as a business, even if you don't want to. It's just
right. Exactly.
It's just what it is. And I know that's that's not the sexy thing to say. That's not the rock and roll thing to say, right? You're supposed to not care and just go out there and do whatever, man. It's rock and roll. But all of the successful bands, even if they have presented themselves that way at various points in their career, everyone that's been successful has had somebody at the helm making those business decisions and treating it as such. Because sometimes us as artists are not that good at that, to be honest.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm more prone to like the cold, calculated decisions, and Brian, the singer, is definitely more of an artist. And sometimes having the artist brain is great because it allows you to set yourself apart, so you don't always go for the expected thing that's been proven to work, and you kind of branch off into new things that haven't been done that also pay off in a different way. So it's very good to have a meeting of the minds between the creative mind and the business mind, and come up with something that represents both.
Yeah, because I think you can have your cake and eat it too. You just need to be aware that both mindsets exist, and they're both important to the success of whatever the project is. And again, a lot of these things just apply to everything, even if it's a restaurant. Like, you might want to serve organ meats, but you also should probably have a cheeseburger there for folks too at the same time. There's reasons to do both.
Yeah.
So what do you think lies next? Are you guys working on new music? Or are you going to be doing more touring? Obviously, the answer to that is yes, but what is immediately in the future for you guys?
Right. It definitely. I've never really picked between the two. It's kind of always both. Um, just because I see no reason to slow down. Um, so yeah, we are, having a bunch of touring this year. We're, doing more touring in the U.S. And overseas, and I do want to spend some time this year working on some new material, even just some ideas, just to get a head start because the album. I guess whenever this is released, the album will be out around the same time. Um, so I'm technically getting a head start if I start writing now, but the more ideas I get down, I think the better spot will be when it is time to start thinking about releasing more.
Absolutely. Do you notice a difference in the crowds, either the response or the way they behave, across the U.S. for sure? But is there a big difference between the U.S. and say Europe or anywhere else you go overseas, or does everybody kind of do the same moves?
That's a good question. I haven't noticed anything crazy different. I think maybe certain parts people get more in like a certain country, like certain beats or melodies may resonate more. But yeah, the usual feedback I hear from other bands is just that people in Europe are more brutally honest, especially Germany. They thought you were better last time you played there. They will tell you that.
Ouch. I guess
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. It means it keeps you on your A game, right? But that's still never easy to
Yes.
hear.
Yeah, but I think compliments are kind of a distraction, and actual feedback and criticism is really what you can grow from.
That's a good way to look at it. You seem like you have the personality that could absorb all of that in a positive manner. Is that an accurate observation?
Yeah, um, I think so. Like if I, see someone, even someone that doesn't necessarily have any qualifications to be criticizing something, I still like to listen to what they have to say because they're not the only person out there like that. There are plenty of listeners out there who don't necessarily know anything about music, but they are perceiving it and they are probably still a fan of music, and their opinion still matters even if they're not a musician. They're still someone that could be coming to shows and may be more or less apt to come to a show based on what they perceived the music or performance as being.
Yeah, that's something I think that's very important for us as musicians to realize. Not everybody, in fact, almost nobody, dives down the rabbit hole in the same way that we do. And I realize that I don't listen to songs the same way that my wife does. My wife's a massive
Yeah.
music fan, but she's a music fan. She's not a musician. So she doesn't listen to song structures and think about them in the same way. I'm always trying to analyze and what can I take from this, and this is interesting. And I sometimes wish I could go back a little bit and stop doing that, but it's something that's almost impossible to turn off once you have. So you have to get those opinions from somewhere, because that is the largest consumer of music, are people like that. They're not people like us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So sometimes the grabbing your buddy is a good method. Which mix sounds better, which
Yeah,
arrangement sounds better.
just because they just have a different perspective, that's still important.
Mm-hmm. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
So you have any tips from the road for anybody that might be listening to this that's thinking about going on tour, or maybe you've done some local shows and are wanting to branch out? You've been around for a while and you've done a lot of touring. Do you have any tips that people maybe don't think about?
Yeah. I think, getting your merchandising situation in good running order is very important. Since that is a lot of the income right there. So just examples are making sure the merchandise you are bringing people would actually want to wear or purchase or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you have space in your transportation to, bring the right amount of it. And it really depends on your scale. If you're really just starting out, you might only need 1 or 2 boxes versus now we can't really even fit more than 50 boxes. So we'll have up to 50 boxes at a time, but, and, have shipments scheduled and stuff. But, yeah, just making sure that stuff is in order. Making sure gear is protected in road cases and it's not floating around in a mess where it can get broken. So investing in that type of stuff. Just making sure if you're going to travel all the way somewhere, you want to give a great performance and sound great. Rather, you can just go for the fun of it, but if you are trying to grow the band as a business, you do want everything as perfect as you can get it. So don't go all the way somewhere until you are absolutely ready to. Yeah, obviously you don't want your vehicle to break, so investing in that so you're not missing shows is important. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is experience and it's stuff you might not think about until something bad happens, and you're like, oh, now that that's happened, I won't let that happen again. So yeah, just having spares of everything you possibly can too.
That's good advice. Yeah, the van is sometimes the old van is sort of romanticized in some ways, but having something that's going to start every time will make your life significantly easier versus the alternative.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, obviously, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But that's a underrated piece of equipment, is a good, solid van or vehicle, whatever it happens to be.
Absolutely. And at the beginning, when you're not even getting paid enough to put, a quarter of a down payment on a van versus you're getting to the level where you can buy half a van or a full van after just one show. The it changes your mindset a lot when you are purchasing at first, because buying something seems so expensive, and then later on in your career, it's more of like a drop in the bucket and necessary to complete the full tour. Luckily, we haven't need to buy a full van in the middle of a tour yet.
Good.
Hopefully never, but it did happen to Silent Planet. Actually, maybe even more than once.
Wow.
But yeah. So it hurts when it happens, but yeah, when you're at a certain point, it's definitely a better business move to complete the shows than to just not spend the money on a van and cancel everything.
Yeah, I this is giving me flashbacks to when we bought our first winding machines. We were like, man, this is so much money, but it's going to enable us to get our quality up. It's going to enable us to do all these things. And now we're sitting here going like, well, we're probably going to have to buy some more winding machines. And it's just more of like a fact of reality versus a big what if should we question. It's just like, no, we're going to have to do that at some point. It's a lot of money, but the alternative is to stop making strings. So
yeah. And any time spent without the things you need is definitely time that could have been spent growing and expanding, which you don't want to miss out on that.
100%. Well, we are knocking on the door of the end of the main episode of the podcast. And before we jump into Patreon, I got a couple of classic questions I like to wrap the shows up on. But before I do that, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor. You're talking to a couple thousand people right now. You can say whatever you want to say. You can shout out your grandma. You can plug anything you want to plug. The floor is yours, sir.
Awesome. So Current's new album, The Death We Seek, will be out on May 5th. This episode may be out, but make sure to listen to that. We'll be starting our U.S. headlining tour in support of the album May 11th. Make sure to come see that if you're in the U.S. If you're in Europe, Shadow of Intent will be playing the European festivals this summer in August.
Nice.
Those dates will be on our page. And those are all the big things.
All right. Sounds good, man. All right, here we go. The classic questions. This one will be interesting because you kind of said you're not much of a pedal guy, but I asked this of everyone. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Ooh, the only Boss pedal I've ever owned is called Digital Delay. So give it to that one.
Like the DD3 or DD? There's so many DDs. I can't remember which number.
I think so. It's white. I know it's white.
DD3 is the classic one. They've got tap tempo ones and all kinds of other versions now, but the DD3 is the one most people have, and I think it's underrated. I love a good DD3.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, and this is the one that gets slightly controversial, slightly dicey, but it has to be asked. It's been asked of every guest. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
That's a great question. And we were just talking about this today because we're getting after show pizza for all the bands. So definitely a big chicken bacon ranch fan. But one pizza I've been craving a lot lately is cheeseburger pizza. So that means it has cheese, it has mac sauce, it has ground beef, and after it's baked, pickles and lettuce are added. So the pickles and lettuce are not baked, but they're added on top. I haven't had that one in a while. I've really been wanting it again, and I don't know who around me makes it. But really, any kind of pizza with dressed up chicken, such as chicken parm or barbecue chicken or sweet chili chicken.
Ah,
Just
big chicken guy.
It's a great combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, big chicken. For pizza.
For
pizza, definitely.
Right. Do you have any favorite pizzerias? Any local ones you want to shout out, or any that you've had on the road that stood out in your mind?
Yeah. Half a mile from my house, Beacon, there's one called Sal's Pizza. Highly recommend that one.
Sal's Pizza. Where did you say that was?
Beacon, New York.
Beacon, New York. All right. Sal's Pizza, Beacon, New York. Shout out Sal's. Chris, thanks for hanging out. This was a really good time. I enjoyed having this conversation. And you dropped some good knowledge bombs on the people. I appreciate that very much.
Try to.
Right on. Well, we'll slide over to Patreon. See what kind of nonsense we can get into over there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. For Chris, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Please make sure you follow Chris on all the socials. All that stuff is linked in the show notes. Give him a shout out. Let him know that you enjoyed this episode. Let him know you got something out of it. Share this episode with a friend. That is the main thing you can do. One of my favorite podcasts says, force your friends to listen. You force them to. And I think that's probably just fine. You can force your friends to listen to it. That counts too. It means a lot to me if you force your whole friend and family network to just download this podcast incessantly. That would be wonderful for me. Hopefully they would like it too. But no, seriously, thank you to everyone who tunes into this every week. It really does move the needle for me. It literally keeps the lights on, pays the bills, all that stuff. Thank you so much for letting me be able to do this. I absolutely love it, and I could not do it without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you want more of this conversation, there's more over on Patreon. All you got to do is go over to patreon.com/tonemob. And for $5 a month, you will get access to more content. You'll get bonus episodes just like the one I recorded with Chris. So you can have extended versions of this podcast. And I hope you like them. I truly, truly do. Thank you all so much. Please, please, please be good to each other. And no, I appreciate you. Thank you. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, this is Chris Santos, host of Delirious Nomads, the Blacklight Media podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media podcast network. Delirious Nomads is a podcast about all things heavy metal, as well as breakdowns of your favorite combat sports. And me being a chef and all, we'll be riffing on some food talk every week with very special guests from across the globe. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com. shipwreck.com.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shipwreck podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise to the stage to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.